10 years ago, we were a continent with potential. When is this potential going to realize itself? I believe that we have come, as Anthony pointed out, we've come a long way. We've taken the car halfway out of the water. And some of the things that we have done is by you sitting here in this room. I believe that development cooperation has a lot of solutions. You have a lot of solutions for farmer business school. You have a lot of solutions for nutrition. You have a lot of solutions for mitigating even climate risk. We are successful at micro level, at project level, and the next hurdle, the machine that we must find to get the car completely out of the water, is scale and sustainability. That is where the challenge lies today. And in my opinion, now I need the slides. In my opinion, the key to this is functionality. Functionality, I believe, is a cornerstone for development as a whole in Africa, and especially for rural resilience. So, I'm not going to talk too much about the urgent problem. I think it has been laid out. About a little over 1/3 of Africans live in extreme poverty. 556 million people out of the 1.5 billion that we are. It is also important to realize that those who are in conflict today, when we look at that Sahel belt, when we look at DRC, when we look at my country, Northern Cameroon and Northern Nigeria, we did not do anything special. Sometimes when you look at the countries in conflict, you think, what's wrong with them over there? What happened? We didn't do anything special. We're just a little further along on the road than the rest are. Meaning that when you look at conflict, it is coming majorly out of bad governance. It is coming out of the lack of infrastructure. It is coming out of the lack of job opportunities. It is coming out of the lack of rural development. And it's important to point out, as we talk about rural areas, that 3 out of 4 of the organized, armed, violent events taking place in conflicts in Africa are happening in rural areas. So our problem is urgent. Some of the factors are outside of our control. We've mentioned them already here today. Climate, pandemics, droughts, demographics, even great power competition, which is playing itself out on the African continent. These things are outside of our control. However, there are plenty of things that are within our control. We manage the politics and very often create the crisis. We decide about the investments, the long-term investments in infrastructure, in policies, in markets. We set up the conditions that maintain low productivity in Africa, but also in agriculture, low productivity in agriculture, but also in many other spheres of our economy. And we finally end up in conflict and continue to perpetuate conflict rather than to go and resolve the structural elements of it. So a lot is in our control. So our urgent problem means that 3 key architects, which you know very well because you work with them in your projects, the state, civil society, and the private sector, must act alone and jointly. Each of these actors has something to do. And however, one actor is more important than the other two. I'm so happy to be sitting with Zambian government officials. Zambia is very close to my heart because I'm an African who believes in democracy for our continent, believes in social justice, and I think Zambia is taking steps in the right direction. And yes. Yes. And so what I'm going to say now is important for Zambia. It is probably even more important for countries like my own, Cameroon. This important actor, that is the state, when we come and say we are doing development, or when even the state itself says it is doing development, it presumes that there is a functional state, doesn't it? It presumes that it itself is functional. We rarely analyze the degree of functionality. We really ask ourselves, what is the state of functionality of this state that is supposed to carry and implement the development strategy? Whatever strategy, whether it's agriculture, health, economy, whatever. We do not look at especially the state's ability to deliver in rural areas. And when the state does not deliver, for my 60 years where African states have not been doing, I'm sorry, I'm not going to tell you a nice story about Africa. I'm an African, I live in Africa, I choose to live in Africa, I'm not going anywhere, I don't need to hear a nice story. I need Africa to work. So that's where our conversation is going to be. And thank you. And so for the last 60 years, when states have not delivered, nothing has happened to them. In my country, the same guy and crew have been in power for 42 years. There are some of you in here who are just right behind me. I won't call any names, right? So nothing happens. There are no repercussions for states that don't deliver. And I believe that the idea of functionality is something that we must look at, that we must render effective, and that we must hold states accountable. I learned this in about 2004, working with local governments. I love local governments. I used to be a local government elected official. I think it is one of the most important pillars of governance in any country. Working with local governance, I learned what just a little bit of functionality can do. Through a series of training programs for mayors and their municipal executives, mostly by German Development Corporation, by the way, we came together, my company's strategies and the mayor of Kumbu. He went through a training on local economic development and he said, I want that. I want that for my municipality. And we worked with him. And in 2 years, this mayor was able to gather evidence on the economy of his municipality, decide on key strategic areas in which he was going to create an enabling environment. He developed a municipal investment code. And most importantly, he brought all the stakeholders to the table, the private sector, the farmers, the civil society, and said, what can we do to develop these key areas. One of his key areas was potatoes, because Cameroon is the potato provider for all of Central Africa. And 2 areas in Cameroon produce these potatoes. His municipality happened to be in the center of one of them. So we worked on the potato cluster. He was able to bring the potato farmers organization, 30,000 farmers. They went beyond his municipality even. He brought them to the table. He brought private sector to the table. He brought researchers from the university in the next town over to the table. And we developed a strategy for the Kumbo potato. Within 2 years, we had developed a Kumbo potato brand that was now a branded potato going out to the market. Within 2 years, he had attracted significant local investment into the sector in his municipality, and the farmers' organization had become one of his most important partners in defining policy. This showed me what functionality, even a little bit of it, at the lowest level, can do. Unfortunately, he got blocked by dysfunctionality at the national level. Unfortunately, the big investment of about $500,000 that was supposed to come to his municipality did not get there because of red tape and so on, and the private sector investor gave up after 2 years. So this is, for me, is where I started this thinking about functionality about 20 years ago. So what do we mean by functionality? It is 3 key pillars: presence and effectiveness, safety and sustainability, hope and adaptability. I'm smiling at my friend Jonas in the hall because I think, and I'm going to do this as a recommendation, if some of you were in Nairobi last year, you heard me present it, and it was slightly different. We have done some co-creation with a GIZ team, P4C, on this concept and adapted it especially to agriculture and agro-food systems. So these 3 pillars, what are we talking about? I said we assume about the functionality of government. When we are talking rural development, we must ask ourselves the question, is government there? If you're an African where government is not there in all the rural areas of your country, raise your hand. Are you serious? Only couple of people raising their hand. So when I go to rural areas in your country, there's water, there's electricity, there are roads. Oh, okay. Because government being there means it is there delivering services for citizens. Recently, we worked in the Sahel, and a woman said to us, the only government we see is the government that beats us. We only see the gendarmes. And we only see them when they are blocking the road and stopping us from doing our business and harassing us. In many rural areas in Africa, government is simply not there. So the first challenge of functionality of our governments is presence. When we are going to, when we are going to set up agriculture transformation in a rural area, we must ask ourselves, is government there? And is it providing at least the minimum of services? And I want to say this, even though it's another talk. These key elements of functionality, for me, are the decolonization of the African state. We were colonized states colonized states do not center citizens. They center the colonizer. So one of the reasons why government is not so present in our rural areas is because we inherited colonized states which were only focused on the center, only on the capital. And since then, we have not reimagined the state to say the citizen must be at the center, and therefore every citizen must feel the presence of government. So we need to ask ourselves about presence. Je suis désolée, hein, les francophones, on parle beaucoup anglais depuis le matin, mais c'est au moins pour vous rassurer que les slides sont en français et en anglais. Je vais continuer en anglais pour la majorité, mais toutes les informations sont dans les deux langues. So as development corporation, we should be asking ourselves when we want to set up a project. One, as we select where we are going to intervene with our partner. This happens in bilateral negotiations. Not too many people in this room are sitting in a bilateral negotiations, but it's something we must think about. Should we not be asking the government, so how present are you in this area where you want me to go and work? Do you have, you want us to go and improve agriculture markets there? Are you there? Do you have an agriculture ministry? Is it functional? Or is there a woman there with a desk and nothing else? Which is the reality for many of our civil servants in rural areas. This should be a part of the analysis right from the onset. And this is not to punish government or to make it feel bad. It is to have the evidence that Anthony was talking about, to know in what situation are we, and to be able to design programs that fully take into account that situation on the ground. Because what we, and now I'm talking to the government officials, what we allow development cooperation to do in our countries is to come in and to establish a whole lot of workarounds. We don't have electricity, they bring a generator. The roads are bad, they come with 4x4s. There is no water, they build a well. It's good for them, for the Zambians who work for them. But for the population and for sustainability, what you are doing, development projects come with perfect conditions. They've brought electricity. They've brought cars that can go through the bad roads. They've brought water. They've brought all of these things. And when they've worked for 6 years, they give you a solution. They say, here you go, Zambia. This is what you need to do in your soy value chain to improve production and improve markets and improve. And then they go away. And they go away with their perfect conditions. So now that lady sitting somewhere in rural Zambia with just a desk, you are expecting her to multiply and to scale this solution that was created under perfect conditions. She doesn't even have a computer to work on. This is the reality of the lack of presence and effectiveness. And it is us as Africans who have to put this discussion on the table, but it is also development cooperation that should not let us get away with skirting around these issues. The second level is safety and sustainability. In French we say, c'est ici que le bas blesse. That this is where it gets tough. Because safety and sustainability is about rights. There is no sustainability if citizens do not have rights. If those rights are not recognized, if they are not codified into laws and policies, and then if they are not translated into actual goods and services. We are talking agri-food systems. Let's talk about land. Can we talk about land? In how many of our countries are the rights recognized? Everybody will raise their hand. Yes, on paper, they are recognized. I don't know any African country that does not recognize the right to own land. Most of them, including for women, on paper. Many even have a law or a policy. Where do we get stuck? When farmers are actually trying to obtain a land certificate. Then it becomes impossible. It's too expensive, it's too complex, it does not take into account the realities on the ground, and there we get to and we have to ask ourselves, anything we are doing in agriculture, anything we are doing in agri-food systems, as long as we've not secured land rights, are we serious? We must ask ourselves these tough questions. We are under attack as development cooperation, from the left, from the right, from the north, and from the south. Yeah? When I'm in Europe and clearly in the US, right, we see that development cooperation is under attack. People are asking, what are you people doing with all this money? Where are the results? Why are these countries still in the same situation they were 40 years ago, right? But African citizens are also asking us these questions. What are you doing with these, your Western friends here? You people seem to be chopping money together, right? African citizens also want to know, what are you doing? You guys have been here with project after project and project after project, and I still don't have water. I still don't have a road. So how can you tell me that this thing is good for me? I was shocked when the US cut off, destroyed USAID, right? I was shocked on social media to see how many Africans were cheering and thought this was great. And I was like, okay, we have a problem, right? So safety and sustainability rights is fundamental to what we are doing. And the question is, as development cooperation, are we having conversations about rights? Are we discussing with our state partners? We discuss with civil society about rights all the time, right? But what about the state? That is the actual guarantor of rights. We need to be having that conversation on the table. And we need to know in agri-food systems whether the right for people to have good food and nutrition is considered an actual right that government is working on. Whether social services like insurance, healthcare, childcare, do we really consider in Africa that the rural dweller has a right to all of this, and that the job of government is to work to ensure and deliver effectively on that right? And as we work with these different architects, one of the key things is under this pillar is the right of farmers, of women's groups, of youth groups to meet, to discuss their rights and their interests, to defend their rights and their interests, and to enter into conversation and negotiation with government and with private sector with regard to these rights. Every time we bring rural people to the table, I don't care which country it is, they are shouting and screaming that we don't know what you people are doing there, but you are not taking into account our reality. Which means that we have not done a good enough job of bringing rural dwellers as a constituency to the table as a part of the conversation about where these development strategies are going, how they should be implemented. The final pillar is hope and adaptability. This, if we have decolonized and put citizens at the center, if we have decolonized and acknowledged and delivered on rights, decolonization is complete when we have hope and adaptability. I always use the migration example. Young Africans are risking their lives on the Sahara Desert, across the Mediterranean. It is far from what we sometimes think. The young Africans who are crossing the Sahara and who are crossing the Mediterranean, they are not the 556 million living in extreme poverty. It costs a lot to migrate. You're talking about anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 to cross that desert or to cross the Mediterranean. You are talking about some of our brightest, most innovative, because it takes a lot to be able to survive that road. You're talking about some of our strongest, because it takes a lot of courage and will to survive that road. So if you have courage, will, intelligence, innovation, and capital, we have to ask ourselves, so why are they not investing it in their country? Why are they taking $10,000 to $20,000 and deciding to cross the desert or cross the Mediterranean? And the answer is hope. You only invest if you have hope. You invest if you believe tomorrow will be better. So we are losing our best and our brightest through both illegal and legal migration, because we can have a conversation with our Western friends about the legal migration, because they are coming and taking the best and the brightest, right? That's another talk. We'll stay focused on this one. But we are losing our best and our brightest because we have not created hope in our countries, because we have not created the conditions where people feel like tomorrow might be better. So we need to grow our economies, not only because we need money and so on, but because growing economies provide hope. When somebody doesn't have a job today, but they feel like, the way I see things going, I might have a job tomorrow, they invest where they are. Contrary to what many people think also before they go, we are, most Africans are absolutely miserable in the West. Really. Most people you meet, if we give them a glimmer of hope, they will come back. Because the lifestyle is so different, the culture is so different. It's so difficult to be so far away from your network of family and friends. So it is important for our governments to understand that working with the other two architects, civil society, private sector, it's not for the fun of it. It's not because you like or you don't like. It's because without it, we cannot create hope. we cannot build for the future. We cannot look at the spaces of art, of culture, of science, of innovation. These are all the spaces of hope. No government can do it alone. If you're going to develop those areas, you need the other architects. So, we have a lot of questions here, but let me go towards closing to say, how then can we reinforce functionality for rural resilience? I have a few suggestions for people that I said are above our pay grade for most of us. I think maybe they go to the country director and to some people who are working in GIZ headquarters and so on. In this moment where development cooperation is under attack, it is also a moment of great opportunity because we are rethinking. And I know, I came here from Hamburg at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference. I know that today, Germany especially, is thinking, how do we align diplomacy, international finance institutions, development cooperation, military cooperation, and diplomacy to be more coherent? And personally, as difficult as this is, I think it is a good idea, because it means that you are looking at that state partner as a whole and looking at how all your forms of support are coherent to that partner. And hopefully you are discussing with that partner and determining together how all of these different elements come together. You must get the international finance institutions on board. If you do plenty of work to get people to make evidence-based policy, you do work on governance, you do work on democracy, you build up civil society, but a government that shoots at its own citizens, that does not deliver on development cooperation, that stays in power for 40-something odd years, can consistently go to the IMF and get 300 million, 600 million, $1 billion. Then the money you are spending in development cooperation, I am afraid, is going in directly countering. That government has no incentive whatsoever to change. They can always go to the IMF and get another check. And unfortunately, that is today's situation. So, more coherence. I also believe in this moment, as tempting as it is for Europe, you're left on your own right now because we don't know what the Americans are doing when they'll end up. I believe that your advantage is in rights-based approaches. And as tempting as it is to say, yeah, but look, they're partnering with China and they're partnering with Russia. We are, and that's our business. It's fine for us to do that. But your strategic advantage is rights-based approaches. If you lose that strategic advantage, it will be difficult for you to compete with the others. Another point that I want to, which is above our pay grade, that I want to stress is donor coordination. Donor coordination is key, is a fundamental contributor to African dysfunctionality. I am sorry, my friends. If I take only agriculture, I don't know about Zambia, but I've had the privilege to evaluate countries, and we found countries that have 7, 9, 12 agriculture strategies. With each partner, they're doing a different agriculture strategy. It is essential for donors to coordinate and to contribute to one national plan. We cannot succeed if we're going in 50 million directions at the same time. My greatest hope for CADAP 3.0 is that we will finally get to one national agri-food system plan per country, and that every partner will be contributing to that one plan instead of pulling Zambia to this side to make this plan, pulling them to this side, pulling them to this side. No state can be functional in these kinds of conditions. And finally, I would say for those of us sitting in this room who work at the program and project level, we might think about the fact that less is more. In my opinion, we need to do fewer programs, be less dispersed geographically, and go more in depth in one geographical area and actually produce tangible results. We need to go deeper into partner negotiations. We need to discuss functionality at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. This element of functionality must be a key part of what we do all the time. I put there, a few people in this room can remember when we used to plan every GIZ project with ZOP? It was GTZ. Who remembers? Well, okay, I have a couple of friends in the room. That's how I learned to be a facilitator, by the way. I was a ZOP facilitator. But I think we lost something. Why? We used to do 1 week planning workshops with the government, with civil society, with the private sector, every architect at the table. If you remember, those workshops were tough. And that is where we defined the objectives and the indicators of a project with the partner, together. And if you remember those workshops, there were fights. It was tough because the different interests were competing. But it enabled us to get this question of functionality on the table and to discuss it very frankly, because the multiple voices meant that when government said to the partner, oh yes, yeah, we are fine, we have all the institutions, and there was somebody from civil society to say, what are you talking about? I'm from that region, this is not existing, it's not working, and so on. So you got to very deep conversations before a project even started. So something to think about on the GIZ end, because we've lost this, and these deep conversations, they really don't happen anywhere anymore. And when they happen, it's very narrow, and I know nowadays, with the digital age, nobody wants to sit for 1 week to do a planning workshop, but we need to think about how this can be done. Think also about partnering with your local government projects. Agri-food systems will not work without local governments. So think about these partnerships. I know some GIZ projects which are already doing this. And in terms of your skills, what we are talking about goes beyond technical skills. You also have to learn. You also have to build your ability to work on governance, to work at a political level, and to assess functionality in the beginning, in the middle,